Hey everyone, it's Amy from Star and Splendor, and I have sorely neglected this space yet again. I don't really have many excuses except that I have been going through a pretty crazy transition, transmutation, sacred marriage. I don't know what I can really call it at this stage, but you might remember from my last video that I was feeling pretty awesome through most of this coronavirus fiasco. And I would say that that's still pretty true. But that doesn't mean that I was exempt from having to do the examination of myself, my biases, looking at things that I thought I had already dealt with that maybe were kind of peeking up through the surface and reintroducing themselves into my life in kind of sneaky ways. I have been busy playing whack-a-mole with all that stuff. And so I'm here to say a couple of things. I just saw my witch friend, Chris. He just came in the shop. He and I have been having sort of a similar experience through this, where we've both been feeling pretty high and pretty okay. So the first thing I wanted to say was, if you're feeling kind of good and kind of joyful and like things are sort of working out for you during this long period of shutdown and reopening and continued virus resurgences and not knowing what the future holds. If you've been feeling pretty good and kind of blissed out and joyful during this, you're not alone, and it's okay. And it's totally understandable. The conditions that we've been living under with the stresses and the sort of insecurity and the stimulus that we've been receiving from the outside world in response to this, those are the right conditions for people to kind of undergo huge personal transformations. And I think that is I think it's okay for me to say that was the case for me. I was on the high sort of upswing of this for the majority of this COVID period. And what it felt like for me was I was super in love with everybody, everything. I was really, really grateful for all the support and the people and the way I had set up my life. And really, in a lot of ways, I was super grateful for my privilege, because my life was sort of okay and things did not get super disrupted other than the fact that the shop was closed for 3 or 4 months. But I was super grateful for the time. I was grateful for the opportunity to slow down. I was really relishing it. I was living life outside with my kids in the yard, in setting up the pool, going to my grandmother's beach house in Long Island. I had extra time to do that because I didn't have to be at the shop. Going to the beach where there was like no one for the first half of the summer. We were out there a lot. We were just living really well. I was cooking. I was getting my house cleaner than it usually is. This all felt super great. And I was seeing the same reports of things not going so well for other people that everyone else was. Sorry, that was a motorcycle. Windows open. So I was seeing those same reports and I was hearing about that stuff. And I was feeling compassion. And I was feeling like that's a shame and that's sad that these things are happening. But I was, for whatever reason, during this whole time, I was really good at shielding myself from taking on the pain and anxiety and stress and struggles of other people. And that is not something that I am typically very good at. I'm a very empathic person. I know that's like a thing people say now, and then we all are. But I would really feel things like very deeply, and I also am a recovering codependent. So I would take on like the pain of others and be like, here, give it to me, like I'll feel it for you, as if that's gonna do any good. This does nobody any good. It just hurts me and makes me sick and miserable. So I used to be a lot like that. During this COVID period, I really got to test my mettle on about this tendency, right? So I was not doing those things. I was very clear about like, here's your anxiety, here's your pain, here's your stress. and here is mine. And I would sometimes have opportunities to sort of defend that and say, well, you know, like, not to, I mean, this was not to rub it in anyone's face, but if someone told me how miserable things were and wanted to give me all this bad news, I would point out what was good. And I would also say, hey, I'm actually feeling okay right now. I'm also viewing this situation as like a big call for everybody to do some work on themselves, for us to work on the world, for the whole situation to get sort of transformed into something that is more in keeping with where we're heading and is more awake and more alive than it's been feeling for a long time. We knew this needed to happen. Something needed to change. Now we're getting an opportunity to change. So I was feeling super on board with that. And I'm not ashamed to say that I do appreciate a good creative destruction. I'm into it. I'm kind of down with that. I used to have a bhakti practice to Kali, who is known as the destructive, sort of primal, dark mother goddess in the Hindu pantheon. I'm comfortable with that. I'm down with that. I have experienced that firsthand. So I know that when things get really dirty and really grimy and really painful, and when structures are breaking down and when my life is breaking down, I know that it will be okay. I've experienced this many times in my life to various degrees, some of them more extreme than others. Anyone who knows me knows this about me. And I always sort of come through, I recover, and I'm better than I was before. And so to me, when I see stuff like this happening around me, I know this is an opportunity for a change for the better. Or I mean, I think about the Tower card a lot, right? Like the Tower card in the Tarot. The Tower is, for me, when I see that card, I see it as a jailbreak, right? It's like, shit, the tower is on fire. We gotta get out of here. You could try the stairs before you jump out the window, but I'm not afraid to jump out the window either, but it's a get out of jail card. You know, this is a breakdown of structures and identifications, like ways that I identify myself, parts of my personality. They are no longer serving me. I need to let them go. I did not pay attention when it was a choice for me to let them go. So now the universe is giving me a bit of a push, and it can kind of feel like being tripped and falling flat on my face and getting a bloody mouth, actually. So, but then I know what comes after is understanding and greater intuition and a better life overall. So I've seen this time and time again. And I just know that this is the way the universe works. And I'm not big on belief, but I have faith that it will continue to work that way. And I'm seeing it working that way for myself and for others. So I encourage you to have hope. And I encourage you to cultivate a feeling of acceptance and kind of allow yourself to surrender to whatever the feeling is in the moment, whether it's a painful feeling, a feeling like loneliness or rejection or loss of some sort, surrendering to that for the moment and then seeing where it leads, because it can't stay like that forever. Having the patience and the ability to surrender to it is probably the best thing that you can do. Acceptance that things are this way, they're happening this way because better things are coming. Cultivating a feeling of curiosity and interest in where it's headed. Some people feel called to take action, and that's cool if you need to take action. I'm down for right action, but I think it's hard to judge when is that right what is that right action and when is it time. I think that requires a period of observation, a period of feeling of stability with the change, understanding what the change is, then sometimes the right action emerges. I'm not in favor of reckless right action or reckless action. That doesn't seem like right action to me. I guess it could be, but it just generally isn't. Doesn't work out that way for me. But yeah, so those are some mindsets that I kind of hold and have found work for me. I'm also taking really good care of my body. I know a lot of people have said that they've been gaining weight during this time. I can totally understand how that would be the case. And I have no judgment about that. I would never speak badly about anybody's weight. It is what it is. I have been taking myself outside and working outside, and I have been doing a ton of yoga, and I have been eating fresh seasonal foods, and I have not been eating unless I am hungry. That's just the way it's been manifesting for me. That's not always the way it is. For sure, once the winter hits, I'm going to be snacking a lot more. But I have not needed that, and I have not wanted that, because I've been really interested in taking care of myself so I can keep this feeling of acceptance and bliss, in a sense, going. But that brings me to the other part of this. So, what goes up must come down, right? That's just the law of physics. So it's also the law of nature and the psyche. And so at some point, some things came clear to me out of this sort of period of joy and bliss. Some things became clear to me that they were not so great, right? And I got really hard on myself about them, and I felt really bad about them. I thought to myself, I thought I had dealt with this and squashed this out of my life, and then I realized, no, I got really sneaky and really deep with it. And so I'm just here to say that if you're feeling bad during this time, that's a part of this as well. So what happens? Well, once we are like embracing the changes, and we're embracing the fact that we don't know what tomorrow will bring. We don't know if COVID will spread further. We don't know if the kids can go back to school or not. We don't know if they're going to stay in school once they're there. We don't know if we're going to be able to go back to our work. We don't know how our businesses are going to do this holiday season. We don't know if there's going to be a vaccine. We don't know if it's going to be safe. Once I accepted that I didn't know these things and had accepted those things, I started to get these sort of waves of sort of understanding and intuition that were sort of saying, okay, well, you're cool and everything. I mean, there's underlying stress or whatever. If you're all right with all of this, like, we're just going to surface a bunch of like garbage that you need to work on. And so I hit that sort of downswing pretty bad. I was feeling so good and so open to like change that I invited that change into myself. And so that is sort of where I have been for like the past couple of weeks. And this is a pretty normal thing. I mean, this in Tantra, if you're like working with Kundalini energy, which I do, this can be called like a dry period. Or you could even think of it as sort of like a burnout in a sense, after like your endorphins and your hormones and everything have been like operating at peak because you've been like enjoying this very joyful, blissed out time, and you've been embracing the destruction and like getting kind of high on it, like I was, then you can kind of crash, right? And your body will need to like rest and regenerate itself. This is also an alchemy called Nigredo, or the black dragon. So this is when all the sort of material that you still need to work on, it comes to the surface because you're open and receptive to it, and it's time for you to change. And that is kind of where I found myself these past few weeks. Super painful. My heart was hurting. My chest felt like it had a lead ball in it, and it was really intense and vibrating, but it felt like it was just cracking my chest open, and it hurt. It hurt like a pain. I would have to like lay on the floor for, half an hour or more at a time and just really, really ground myself through this just to feel sort of better. It's not the same as a depression. It's more like a total sort of, well, it was more like a wallowing and feeling sorry for myself for a good part of it, but I'm kind of on the upswing from that even now. These things happen. This is the cycle, right? So I'm looking at this stuff so that I can assimilate it into myself and not repeat the same patterns and try something different because I am a different person. My joy transformed me. And the pain will transform me as well. And I will make new decisions and different choices. And I'm giving myself plenty of room to do that. So one of the things that I had to remind myself was something that an old manager of mine who was also a coach used to say when we would do this sort of like yearly review of like, what were my tasks? And she would say, well, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it. Yeah, that's simple, right? Like, of course, like, why do you need someone to tell you that? But I needed someone to tell me that. And during this little Negredo period, I have needed to remind myself of that. And I've needed to give myself permission to say, you know what? I know I started this thing, but I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to move on from it because it's not in alignment with me anymore. Not with the Amy that I am right now coming out of this experience. Sometimes this period can mean needing to say goodbye to friends or needing to back away from certain types of conversations or needing to pull away from certain types of, like from family members or professional contacts. Like, it's okay to say, I'm not going to talk about politics for a while. I'm not going to talk about the election. I don't want to make fun of political figures. I don't want to make light of, movements that other people think are important. I'm not going to have those conversations. Saying no, I'm finding I'm saying no to a lot of things during this period. And so I wanted to tell you that if you need to say no because of where you're at right now, you have permission to do it. Not that you need permission from me, but if you did, you have permission. You have permission to say no, and you have permission to back away from situations, people, topics, conversation that bring you down, that are not in alignment with who you are, that don't express truth and beauty, that do not seem to reflect the universal will, that are not creative, even in their destruction. Learning to know the difference is really important. It's okay to say no to unhealthy patterns and to get help with rewriting them. And it's just basically okay to completely rewire your life right now. That's what we're here to do. My friend Elise, who does evolutionary astrology, says we are shedding karma right now. We are letting it go. The astrology is telling us that that's what we're supposed to be doing right now. And that's why it's both joyful and painful. I'm feeling that big time. Yeah. But even when you shed things that are good for you to shed, it can be a little sad. And it can be confusing because you may not know who you are going to end up being without that old baggage. And yeah, that's a hard part too. So we're all in this together. We're all doing this work to a degree. I see some people who are more engaged with it than others. I see some people who are retreating into more of a fantasy life or more of a everything is great and perfect. And I don't think that's the same as what I was describing, how I was feeling earlier, feeling that joy and sort of acceptance and like feeling that sense of that is all springing from this surrender that I'm doing to like the circumstance and what is going on in the universe and what is going on with politics and the economy and the virus. I surrender to that. And that is a different feeling than being sort of holding yourself in a fantasy and sort of remaining oblivious, right? So pay attention, be awake, but take really good care of yourself. And, think of this as an alchemical process. And maybe if you want, you can look into that a little bit more. There's a lot of great books on alchemy. I definitely recommend going back to the source material for that instead of more modern books. But there's a lot of great books on psycho-spiritual systems, which psychology is also a form of alchemy. So you can get on board that way. But maybe I'll do another little segment on alchemy at some point. I should do a class. So I may do a class in the shop on that. In any case, I hope you are all well. I hope if you're feeling black, you're also having days where you're feeling joy. And that even if you're feeling kind of dark, there's sort of an underlying thread of joy there that you can pick up if you need to. Maybe that's something to meditate on and see if you can feel it. See if you can locate it in your body and feel it and focus on the sensation and bring it up so that you can bring it up time and again when you need to. All right, so take care and I'll talk with you all soon. Bye.